Australia's toughest ever anti-terror laws have passed Parliament tonight, promising mandatory prison sentences for publicly displaying any terror symbol. It comes as Peter Dutton accuses security agencies of bypassing the Prime Minister, and he's now calling for a public inquiry.
In the House of Representatives, Labor and Liberal MPs side by side passing new mandatory sentences for hate crimes.
Ayes 117, noes 13.
That unity didn't last long.
It's obvious that the Prime Minister was kept in the dark. The question is why.
The opposition demanding an inquiry into when the Prime Minister was told about an alleged terror plot thwarted by authorities in Dural in Sydney's southwest.
So stop the investigations. Stop doing the work to track down the perpetrators of these crimes and engage in politics.
You must have been absolutely livid that you weren't notified.
No, you're making an incredible assumption there, Carl.
That's a new line again. And I just think we need somebody with honesty and integrity to have a look at the process.
Suggesting security agencies or state police forces were keeping information from the Prime Minister over fear it would be leaked. A suggestion without evidence, but with plenty of insinuations.
I'm not going to comment on discussions I've had with individuals out of agencies, and people can draw their own conclusions.
But for Peter Dutton, there is no issue too big for him to show how small his approach to politics is.
The AFP today reluctant.
Was the Prime Minister briefed?
This is a public hearing and it's not an appropriate forum for us to provide information.
When we're asking simple questions at the AFP, you expect simple answers.
The government has rejected the inquiry. It had also rejected the coalition's calls for mandatory sentencing until an 11th hour change.
I want the perpetrators of anti-Semitism to be caught, charged, held to account for their crimes and put in the clink.
Under the changes, 12 months minimum sentences for publicly displaying Nazi symbols or giving the Nazi salute. 12 months minimum for displaying or waving the flag of other terror groups. 3 years minimum for financing terrorism and 6 years minimum for terror acts.
The Prime Minister, I think, needs to be much clearer about what he wants and not what Peter Dutton calls for.
If you're going to have a Prime Minister who's a cheap imitation of Peter Dutton, when you have an election coming up, why wouldn't you just choose the real thing?
It is our legislation, and our legislation was the first to outlaw any of these symbols.
The government has pursued these changes because we are very concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism in our community. We want to send an unambiguous and clear message that civic society and the New South Wales government oppose it in all circumstances. But I want to make it equally clear that the suite of reforms that we are introducing will apply to everybody. Racism has no place in modern Australia.
The changes are fairly wide-ranging. They'll include a new criminal offence for intentionally inciting racial hatred, a more specific offence that deals with anti-Semitic behaviour, including that makes the display of a Nazi symbol on or near a synagogue with an increased maximum penalty of New Year's, as well as a new aggravated offence for graffiti on a place of worship. That graffiti change is significant in of itself, that it's looking at incidents that have occurred in Sydney late last year and early this year, including at synagogues in Alloa in Sydney South and Newtown in the Inner West. We'll also see another offence added to the Crimes Act, which will see people potentially criminally liable for blocking access to a place of worship without due cause. This could be for a religious festival or ceremony where people are either protesting or for other reasons obstructing access to that site. Along with new laws, there's also new resources. $500,000 will be allocated to local governments to improve social cohesion. And we've seen today, right where I am here in Bondi, mayors gathering together to speak about how they can improve social cohesion. They'll now be able to access more than $500,000 in additional funding for grants to support such programs. The police are also getting more money, to the tune of $500,000 to investigate hate crimes within the state.
Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. I want to thank a subscriber over on the website Cool Breeze for sharing this with me, because obviously there's so many things happening in the world. The new world order infrastructure is being put in place in every single country as we speak. It's not just America. So we have to pay attention to what's happening all around us because dominoes are falling. And countries like Australia and China are literally showing us what the blueprint and life in America is going to be like in the future. And I want to first say that this is a video to show you what's happening. It's an educational video. There is no hate at all coming out of my mouth about anyone involved. I just would like to show everybody out there what they're trying to implement and why. And I highly recommend you pay attention to some of the things that I show you in this video. So what we have, and you saw in that clip, is mandatory jail for quote-unquote Nazi salutes under new Australia laws. Now, the sheeple out there hear that, and they say, that's right. And we're just talking about a hand gesture. Keep in mind, we saw a similar salute from Elon Musk a few weeks ago, even though that wasn't the salute he was actually giving. He was giving the Roman Empire salute, but they don't want you to actually think about what this could mean and what symbol means what, because lots of these symbols have dual meanings, of course. And they don't want you to think for a second of, what if I accidentally hold my hand out and I make that salute because maybe I'm having a seizure or something and I hold my... Don't think at all about things like that. We promise we wouldn't arrest you under those circumstances. We promise we won't raid your home looking for any quote-unquote Nazi paraphernalia. And this is about more than that. Because really what they've done is they've convinced people of this thing called hate crime. Something that could be so vague. It could really define anything, right? I mean, if you want to define hate, you could define hate in so many ways. They tell you that it's hateful, right? If you call somebody fat, it's fat shaming. They tell you that if you call somebody ugly, that it's hateful, right? And most people focus in on a lot of the quote-unquote anti-Semitism. They focus in on the LGBTQ stuff. But the government is not trying to protect anybody in the LGBTQ plus community. What the government is trying to do is put laws in place that will make it a hate crime if you expose or call out the government for what they're doing, which of course ties in to anti-Semitism. You ever seen any other religion protected as much? You ever see any other people protected as much? Of course not. And there's a reason that you're not allowed to bring up a certain group of people and that they can label anything that you say against them as anti-Semitic. It isn't about a Nazi salute or drawing a swastika that they're concerned with. What they're concerned with is the same thing that has happened throughout centuries and centuries, where a certain group of people were exposed for conspiring against the large masses of people and were removed and exiled from where they were. And now we see them once again gaining global control. They already have it. So they're making sure that they put these things in place so that while their foot's on the gas pedal and we head towards 2030, the more and more people that wake up and realize who's really behind it, you won't be able to question who's behind it, because we've convinced the sheeple that if you question a certain group of people, you should now be thrown in jail. That's how insane it's getting, and it's coming to America, and I'll show you in a second. But what we just saw was 12 months minimum sentence for a public display of a Nazi symbol giving a Nazi salute. So they've worked and worked and worked on convincing people that this thing that they created called hate crime is a real thing. They've convinced people that it's real. It's a hate crime. Okay, we now have a definition of a hate crime. It could be whatever they tell you it is. They could say, well, because the person was gay and somebody did something to him, well, it's got to be a hate crime, right? If somebody has a gay pride flag and they have a big X through it, that's a hate crime, right? And people have gotten so worked into a frenzy over these things and gotten so emotionally sensitive, which they've done by design, that people are now calling on other citizens just for holding a flag that they disagree with to be a reason to throw them in a jail cell. That's how weak society has gotten. That's how soft we have gotten. And this has been the government's plan all along. And all this has to do with, the only thing they care about is not questioning a certain group of people and making it illegal, because when you find out who's running and controlling the world government, you're not going to be allowed to question it. You're not going to be allowed to talk about it because they're going to be afraid that the people are going to band together and do what they've done throughout centuries and disband these people and exile them from where they're located, or potentially worse, for actually conspiring against the people. Now, when a treasonous government has this type of power, of course, you won't be able to question that treasonous government. When you start seeing that everybody has committed treason, that this is now a tyrannical operation that's taking place, guess what? That'll be a hate crime, because they'll say that it's invoking terrorism to speak out against the government. And none of these people see it, because what they've done is they've dumbed people down so much and gotten people so divided by design that people think they actually are doing these things because they want to protect certain people who are getting bullied and the government's coming in to help and they care so much about it. It's the same government who just tried to poison and commit mass genocide and did a couple of years ago, right? Your global government. Yeah, they care so much about us. That's why they steal all of our money from us that we make, and then they tell us that they're shipping our tax money into a big container and setting it on fire. Yeah, this government that really cares about you and wants to protect you from hate speech. They want to protect themselves. So that brings me to this, because everything in Australia, just like in China, is at an extreme level. The banning of guns, the banning of free speech, tyranny. That's what we see. China is the blueprint. Australia is probably the next country in line that's really carrying it out. And it's coming to America. And Donald Trump, believe it or not, the patriot Donald Trump is the one who's going to carry this out. Trump has an executive order that he signed that cracks down on anti-Semitism and could deport foreign student protesters, right? Additional measures to combat anti-Semitism. Trump executive order urges universities to monitor and report protesters on student visas, right? So now we know why they created, we already know why they created these college campus, all the stuff we saw between pro-Palestine and pro-Israel. The government created the entire thing. And people go, that's not true. I was at one of those rallies, right? Well, who do you think organized it? Who do you think set it up? Why do you think they blasted it on TV so you could see it? Because monkey see, monkey do. And then the sheeple, like they are, go out and copy it. It takes one guy in place, one plant, to set these events up, and then they go and go and go, and they tell a friend, and they tell two friends, and so on and so forth, right? That's how you herd humanity. So they've deliberately created all these things, right? And now we're seeing the first wave of this, where Trump is urging universities to monitor and report protesters, right? So conservatives love this. Monitor and report them. They could be terrorists, right? They could be waving the ISIS flag. We need to have them deported immediately. And this isn't about monitoring and reporting those people. It's about monitoring and reporting people like us. Because eventually this filters from universities to communities, to towns, to cities, where just like in 1984, you'll have your tattletales who will go about watching people around them, listening to what they're saying, and going and reporting you to Big Brother. Hey, somebody out there said that, not the amount of people we were told died in that event back in the World War II, that they told us the entire thing was based on. The number wasn't real. It wasn't even 6 million. What? What did you say? The police show up at your front door. See, that's the number one crime that can't be committed. But Christians, of course, are completely misled by this. So Christians are now okay with this censorship, right? See how the seesaw has gone? Where conservatives and Christians couldn't believe that they were getting censored 4 years ago and getting removed from platforms, and they were in uproar about it. And now they're laughing and loving seeing Democrats get censored. It's about canceling each other out and removing our rights, specifically free speech, so that this globalist cabal doesn't get exposed. So now they're cheering this on. They love it. They're like, yeah, the university should be monitoring and reporting these protesters, and we should have them removed. And then the next thing you know, it just expands. So it goes from there, desensitized to this, to them telling you, hey, now we need to do this in our towns because we're seeing an uprising in this in our town. Oh, we are? Yeah, look, they'll show you some news clips, swastikas on tombstones, on temples, on synagogues. Oh, my goodness, we got to do something about it. Okay, Donald, if you say so, because Israel's God's chosen people. Next thing you know, you have people in your town monitoring, reporting you, and you have people getting arrested in your town for actually speaking against a certain group of people. And you know what this leads to? You know what this executive order leads to? It leads to Bible bans. And Christians are sitting there and they're going, you're absolutely out of your mind. The Bible's linked up with Israel and Christianity as one, right? Because they probably have never actually read the Bible. In fact, Wikipedia, this shows you how prepared they're getting people for this to come, for these Bible bans, which is why I tell people, have as many hard copies of the Bible as you possibly could have, because it's going to be banned from the internet and it's going to be a banned book. And they're going to seize Bibles from people's homes. They will. It sounds insane now, but guess what? 15 years ago, it sounded insane to talk about men dressed as women playing women's sports. So it's not as insane as it sounds. And 15 years ago, talking about the Neuralink and getting implants in people's bodies that could work directly with computers sounded insane. And people said it would never happen. And guess what? People are getting more and more accepting of these ideas. So Wikipedia has anti-Semitism in the New Testament is a discussion of how some Christian views of Judaism in the New Testament have contributed to discrimination against Jewish people throughout history and in the present day. The idea that the New Testament is anti-Semitic is a controversy that has emerged in the aftermath of the Holocaust and even is associated with a thesis put forward by Rosemary Ruther. Debates surrounding various positions partly revolve around how anti-Semitism is defined and on scholarly disagreements over whether anti-Semitism has a monolithic continuous history or it's instead an umbrella term covering many distinct kinds of hostility to Jews over history. Then they go on to talk about specific claims of anti-Semitism in the New Testament, okay? So here's what they're claiming on Wikipedia. These are anti-Semitic. Number one, the Jews are responsible for crucifying Jesus. Number two, the tribulations of the Jewish people throughout history constitute God's punishment of them for killing Jesus. Jesus originally, number three, came to preach only to the Jews, but when they rejected him, he abandoned them for Gentiles instead. Number four, the children of Israel were God's original chosen people by virtue of an ancient covenant, but by rejecting Jesus, they forfeited their chosenness, and now by virtue of a new covenant, Christians have replaced the Jews as God's chosen people, the church having become the people of God. That's just four of them. These are considered anti-Semitic views. This is a Wikipedia post. This is according to the anti-defamation organizations. They tell you that this specific thinking is anti-Semitic. And you don't think that they're going to start coming for people like us? And you see how deceived most Christians are by aligning themselves with Israel. You could see how many videos I post and had posted in the past, which I don't post as many as I used to, but they are available on the website, where people comment, I'm unsubscribing. How dare you say this? And they give me specific verses about that specific piece of land and the covenant that was made, and they don't grasp it. And obviously, if you're a 501c3 church and you speak and you're government tax exempt and you speak against them and you say, hey, you know, they're the ones who did this, they're the ones who did that, the synagogue of Satan in the book of Revelation, guess what? You'll lose your 501c3 privileges and you'll start paying taxes again. And then likely the church will go bankrupt. That's how this works. Number five, the Jewish Bible repeatedly portrays the Jewish people's stubbornness and disloyalty to God. Number six, the Jewish Bible contains many predictions of the coming of Jesus as the Messiah, yet the Jews are blind in the meaning of their own Bible. Number seven, by the time of Jesus's ministry, Judaism had ceased to be living faith in faith. Judaism, number eight, essence is a restrictive and burdensome legalism. Number nine, Christianity emphasizes love, while Judaism stands for justice and a God of wrath. Number 10, Judaism's oppressiveness reflects the disposition of Jesus' opponents called Pharisees, who in their teachings and behavior were hypocrites. Notice how they don't mention the book of Revelation in there. Specifically, they don't mention Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. That specific verse is very, very important in understanding everything that's actually occurred and how this New World Order is in place and who's behind it and who's claiming to be something that they're actually not. They don't even want this verse mentioned in a Wikipedia post because it could actually lead to an awakening. And why do you think most churches actually don't read the book of Revelation? Now, I know the majority of you who follow my channel likely, if you go to a church or you listen to ministers and pastors, which I am not one or claiming to be one, but if you do listen to them, I'm sure they do actually talk about the book of Revelation. I'm talking about the majority of churches. You know, the churches that have bands playing in the middle of their masses, or the majority of churches that have cupcake sales on the weekend and want your kids to come and everybody plays and they pretend like we're living in a wonderful world and we're supposed to love on everything and love one another and be tolerant of everyone. Well, they don't read this type of stuff to them, because it would wake them up. And of course, it would be seen as going against what they agreed to when they become a 501c3 church. So this is what we're headed towards. All of this stuff is about protecting the government, protecting a certain group of people, and removing the Bible. And you might say, well, Christians won't stand for that. Well, guess what? There's lukewarm Christians, and then there's Christians who are hot in their faith. You could take a guess as to which type of Christian I am, but I'll tell you right now, the types of Christians who are lukewarm in their faith, go look at MAGA. Go look at conservatives who put their faith in the Republican Party and Donald Trump instead of in Christ. They won't believe that they're lukewarm in their faith because they probably never even heard the Bible verse about being lukewarm, because again, they probably never read the book of Revelation. in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 16. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. That's really what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the separation of the wheat and the tares. We're seeing a lot of lukewarm Christians who are, all they need to do is hear Donald Trump say that he's a Christian, and then they just worship at his feet instead of worshiping at God's feet, instead of trusting in God, instead of thinking and realizing that these people are conspiring against us. The Bible tells us about nations conspiring, does it not? In Psalm 2, why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. And again, let's pay attention to this as we move forward, because how many Christians are going to be on board and okay with these free speech bans, this hate speech being put in place? The same Christians who are complaining about how there's hate speech laws to protect the LGBTQ, right? They think that these laws are going to protect them because, well, Israel and Christianity are side by side, right? Because their churches only speak about God's chosen people in Israel, but they don't know how to interpret the state of Israel, between the state of Israel, which was created in 1948, and God's chosen people. And they put stuff on Wikipedia like I just read to you. They're preparing you for it. So don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to happen while Donald Trump's even in power, right? There are many, many that believe that the Bible should be banned for speaking anti-Semitism, right? There's the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which was a bipartisan bill in Congress which would crack down on anti-Semitic speech on college campuses. Far-right lawmakers and activists have argued that it could outlaw Christian biblical teachings. And that's what the plan is, to outlaw biblical teachings. They're going to make you worship the synagogue of Satan. And most of these Christians won't even know it. So this is where we're at in the world. People are going to get arrested for flying a flag that they deem anti-Semitic and hateful. These are the types of things that the people should push back against. But guess what's going on in Australia? Well, the people can't form anything against the actual government. Even talking like that is now considered a terrorist act, even though our Constitution in America tells us that if the government's not working for you, there's lots of things that can be done to replace the government. It doesn't need to be a violent act. But in Australia, of course, they've given up their right to free speech. They've given up their right to bear arms. And now they're at the mercy of the government. And during the lockdowns, it was very apparent of how dangerous that is, because Australia had it just as bad as any other country out there as far as quarantines, lockdowns, removal of rights, people being arrested for getting caught out after curfew, going to McDonald's or trying to go get food somewhere. People were being arrested for being seen out in their car past 8 o'clock at night. This is the world that they want to create. And the more we comply, the more they move forward with it. And anybody out there that's okay with these types of laws being passed, where they're going to say, hey, I heard, this literally sounds like, they want to talk about how we're progressing as humanity and we don't want to live in the Stone Ages and things like that. It's literally like what we heard during World War II. Oh, we heard that somebody has a Nazi flag in their house, right? Or we heard that somebody listens to hurting humanity in their house. Let's go in their house. We have reason to go into their home because they listen to so-and-so. Inside the home, what do they find? Well, they might not find anything, but maybe they'll see something they don't like a book. A book like something that talks about a black awakening, or maybe a book like the Bible. And they say, well, this has got hate speech in it. You now have the right to remain silent, right? We're going to take you in. You're going to serve prison time for having these ideologies. You're going to serve prison time for holding this symbol up out in public, right? It's insanity. Insanity that we've allowed this to happen, but they're moving at a rapid pace and nobody's catching up with them because they're distracted by all the nonsense that they continue to feed you, like big balls, these stories that are out there about the government and Doge and big balls and how the news is calling some guy big ball. And everyone's like, this is trolling. This is like, they're all distracted with nonsense, complete nonsense. While Trump passes these executive orders to have people monitored and reported if they're saying things that are against Israel. And the Christians go, yeah, we agree. That should be the way it is. First of all, no, it shouldn't. Even if Israel was aligned with Christianity. People have the right to free speech. People have the right to oppose Christianity if they choose. God gave us free will. Our job is to minister to them or to speak to them or to try to convince them otherwise. But if somebody out there doesn't want to be Christian, that's on them. Because when Christ returns and time is up and they don't have a choice anymore, it's on them. They're responsible for their choice because God gave us all free will. They're trying to remove free will. Have you noticed? By removing free speech, free thinking. And most importantly, in addition to those things, getting something inside of your body that would edit your genetic code, which would really make you no longer a child of God because you would actually be a creation of humanity. You would be an altered, edited human being. So you would no longer be salvageable. So ladies and gentlemen, this is what's going on around the world. It's horrifying to think that this is okay. And again, look no further than those Wikipedia posts because you think it's a crazy notion because you're in your own world, right? And then you start seeing, oh wait, people actually think that Christianity is anti-Semitic? Oh yeah, and what else do they think Christianity is? Hateful, right? Don't forget about Sodom and Gomorrah and how that's going to play into hate speech in America and how that's going to even call for Bible bans as well. Old Testament, New Testament, the entire thing. They want it wiped out. So get your hard copies while you can. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. Share this video, and God bless all of you and your families as always.